Hello, and welcome back to another Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose, and it's mayhem at the MCG. What we're talking about, 20 wickets falling in a day. Absolutely huge scenes as the fourth Ashes Test. Some might have said it was going to be a dead rubber. Well, the bowlers weren't told about it. The batsmen, maybe that's what they turned up expecting. Only twice before in Australia and 5 times in the history of Test cricket have we seen more wickets fall on day one of a Test match, with 20 wickets getting ripped through as the MCG pitch certainly looked a little greener than usual and turned into a bowler's paradise on Boxing Day. As always, if you're new to the channel and joining us for the first time, or you haven't already, make sure to hit subscribe down below. We'll be back for plenty more cricket takes and much more across your summer. But make sure to hit subscribe and follow along. You can hit the bell as well to get those notifications down below. And follow us on social media as well to get all our tidbits and snippets and be involved in the ongoing conversation around sport at The Chris Mack Show on your favourite social media channels. But as I said, we're here to dig into day one of Boxing Day, and there's plenty of wickets and theatre to talk about. It's absolutely been a bowler's paradise, as I alluded to. 20 wickets falling. Australia all out for 152. England then dismissed before the end of play for 110. And Australia, with a very new look opening pair, seeing off the final over of play as they did so, let's say, not convincingly, but they did do. But it comes down to, what is the root cause? Was it wonderful bowling? Was it abhorrent batting? Was it poor pitch preparation? Or was it somewhere in between the triumvirate of the three? That's the answer, I think. But let's go back through the day's play and talk about what we've seen and what we knew was coming. I guess in terms of the match, a couple of things. When the toss was done, England won and they elected to bowl first, and understandably so. Some grass significant enough to be left on the pitch. It really looked like a toss to win and bowl. Steve Smith, as Australian captain in Pat Cummins' absence, said exactly the same. He said he would have liked to have had a bowl. Hey, both sides got a bowl in the end on day one, so it's certainly not something too much to knock or complain about. But some changes for both sides. Despite Todd Murphy being named in the squad, he didn't come in for the test. Michael Neser came back in for Pat Cummins. And then Jai Richardson returned after an extended absence. We talked about in our preview show with his shoulder injuries, etc. He came in instead of the spin option, which, based on what we've seen so far, certainly wasn't a bad result. Again, we'll talk about him and his opening bowling efforts in this match. And then for England, Jofra Archer had been ruled out. We saw Jacob Bethel come in at 3 for Ollie Pope. And replacing Archer was Atkinson coming back in. He probably spared Cast from being dropped by Archer not being available, I would suggest. And that's what we ended up with in terms of the structure of the two lineups with the changes there. So Bethel coming in, Atkinson coming in, and then for the Aussies, Inglis made way as well, with Steve Smith coming back in. Pat Cummins giving way, as did Nathan Lyon. So 3 changes essentially for the Aussies. But the Aussies, they opened and, look, there's a lot of wickets early that went, either clean bowled, caught behind across this day's play, full straight pitch deliveries, a little bit of work off the deck. The Aussies, it looked pretty ordinary the way they started. Low for all of the top 4 batsmen. Again, a lot of stuff caught behind the wicket, bowled, getting things in. It's one of those pieces that's a challenging piece, I guess. It was a really good deck for bowling. England won the toss and decided to bowl because of that. We then had Head made 12, Weatherall made 10, Marnus and Steve single digits. Usman Khawaja and Alex Carey looked to right the ship around the lunch break, but even they couldn't go on with their starts. Cameron Green, I'm not quite sure what he was thinking, trying to take that quick run and then the hesitation mid-run. That's someone who's, on the ropes in terms of his batting in his Test career. There's a lot of questions being asked of him, and now all of a sudden he's got himself in a real bit of strife there. I think it's, a better position for him, to be considered as a bowler, rather a bowling all-rounder rather than a batting all-rounder, but still with all-rounder next to your name, you need to be doing a lot better than that. Josh Tongue, I have to say, look, phenomenal bowling. The rock that got Michael Neser, the one that got Steve Smith, really good deliveries, nice and full, a good length, forcing them to play. They played around it, missed it, a bit of movement off the deck, and away go your stumps. Really simple. You miss, I'll hit. And on a good deck, that's what a bowler needs to do. And they bowled well here, England, I think it's fair to say. Cast a little bit loose at times, but outside of that, he probably picks up some bonus points for getting that run out of Cameron Green the direct hit when he sort of, I guess, hesitated, fumbled, and then just couldn't get there in the end, was well out of his ground. Mitchell Starc, look, that's tough. That's a no ball every day of the week from Carr. So Carr's probably gifted a wicket there. Starc, though, it was a pretty poor shot realistically to try and play. He just spooned it. Wasn't convincing in his playthrough. And again, that's where it comes down when you have a look at this. And I don't want to point the finger at Mitchell Starc here, but a number of the shots that were played, even Travis Head's shot, there were shots that didn't probably need to be played. Alex Carey getting caught down the leg side as well. These sorts of things, like they were just set up for the traps, and we didn't outsmart them as Aussies. And we'll get to the English batting in a minute, but just needed to be a lot better, I think. So really disappointing from that point of view. Jai Richardson then came in. Scott Boland came and went really quickly, and it leaves Josh Tongue with 5 wickets. A really promising bowling display for him. And, a lot of the talk at the start of this series was about Archer and Wood. Obviously, both out of the series now. Wood was gone after 1 test, Archer now after 3. And Tongue has been the shining light for mine. He was really good in Adelaide. He's been really good again here. And, he's, really shouldering a fair bit of the load. In a bowling lineup. Notably, they only used 4 bowlers. So all out for 152, though, Australia. And it looked as though that might be a bit dicey, but as they always say, the old adage, you need to see both sides bat on a pitch before you can really judge it. And England have shown that they're not really the same batting lineup as Australia, despite the fact that their batting was the piece that was going to be revered coming over here. We had this wonderful lineup with, Crawley, Root, Brooks, Stokes, Jamie Smith to fire along. They had some all-round options, which they classed Jackson, Cast as all-round options. I think Gus Atkinson's got more claim to that at the moment than anyone else. But the English, similar thing, good, full-pitch bowling for Australia, and it had them in all sorts. Duckett just, I'm not quite sure what he was trying to do. It was poor, I think, realistically. It's been more on top of a rough week for him after everything that's happened off the field. Really disappointing now for him that he couldn't get a score and kind of put that behind him, obviously, with those videos coming out around Noosa and stuff. Either way you want to look at those, we're not going to get into the nuts and bolts of that. But, certainly disappointing for him. But the wickets falling, Root, that was a really good delivery from Noosa. All of a sudden, by the time Root was gone, they're 4 for 16 and in real trouble of being dismissed, 30, 40, 50 sort of runs. And they needed someone to right the ship. And Harry Brook and Ben Stokes came together and did that. They put on a 50-run partnership. Most of that was Harry Brook scoring it over a run of ball. He decided he was going to be there for a good time, not a long time, and he may as well make runs while it was happening and that there was going to be a ball with his name on it. And sure enough, those wickets did start to come. But as the wickets fell, England sort of, I guess, fell apart. Brooks, he went at 5 for 66 after they put the 50-run partnership together. It was a really good delivery from Scott Boland just to trap him in front. And then the wickets just continued to fall from there, from 5 for 66 to all out for 110. Gus Atkinson decided he'd try the Harry Brook treatment and went after them a little bit. But again, eventually his luck ran out, as it tends to do when you slap happy and just hitting and hoping. Reversed away far too far from one to be the last man out at 110. But again, absolutely no shame for him, nor any of the other tailenders really, even Will Jackson, Bryden Carr. So I don't think you can really blame them too much. So it's one of those pieces that you just say England were poor, Australia were poor. England, obviously, slightly more poor. Their batting lineup's just not stacking up. It's just one of those pieces. I thought Australia's top 4 when extras had outscored them. But then, when you've got a top 4 here, 5, 2, 1 in a duck, again, if Harry Brook doesn't get 41 and only gets 11 or something, all of a sudden this team's out for 80 and they're in all sorts of horrors. We had 3 players get into double digits, which is just a Byron in Test cricket. It's just not good enough. Did the pitch maybe have a little bit too much juice in it? Yeah, I think that's fair to say that it did. But at the end of the day, you go out there, both sides have batted on it. Australia did, they're probably getting a 3 out of 10. England's getting a 1.5 out of 10 for what they dished up. Just not enough resilience from them. And that's been the theme of this Test series, I think it's fair to say. They've had, opportunities, they've had glimpses, and, they just couldn't do it. So certainly going to be really interesting to see what comes from here. The big question, though, was who's going to come out to bat, and it was Scott Boland and Travis Head, and Scott Boland clearly given the job with Australia having 1 over to face and a 42-run lead just to try and see it off. In the first ball that he faced, he skewed it and skied it just over the man at short leg, which was a little bit nervy for a moment, but he got away with it, saw out the next 4 deliveries, and then just yeah, look, I don't think it was even all that intentional, but just pushed one out into some open space and got a good piece of it. And it raced away out through the offside for 4 runs, and that's where Australia finished at none for 4. It's going to be interesting to see, what comes of this pitch for tomorrow. That's going to be the big question from here. It's, again, not going to be warm tomorrow in Melbourne. I think a predicted high of about 22, so it's not going to bake out too much. But then days 3 and day 4, 30 and 34. So all of a sudden some heat is going to be really required, and they're going to, some heat is going to be applied to the pitch, and I think it'll start to dry out. The grass will die off, and if we get to day 3 and day 4, that is, I'd be surprised if we get to day 4 at this rate. But it might actually be all right for batting come day 3 with that bit of heat coming around in the morning if you can get there, and it might be okay for an English chase. So if Australia bat all of tomorrow being day 2, and put on another 240 or so, and England are chasing 280, we might have a game of it on day 3, but I can't see it going too much past that. I think we'll probably be wrapped up by tea. And I tell you what, if England bat like they did today, it's not going to really matter anyway. If Australia bat like they did today, I would expect they'll get a little bit more tomorrow. They might, put on 180 or 190, but again, they were poor. England were poorer again. There's a lot of work to be done. The bowlers are having a field day. Keep an eye out for Josh Tongue. Obviously, as I said, he is really starting to build into something now. He'll be on a hat-trick on his first delivery tomorrow, or you would expect he'll have the new ball. Sorry, not the new ball. He'll have the second use of the ball tomorrow. So when he comes in, he will be on a hat-trick. Although it would be nice, actually, to see with what he delivered today that they give him the rock first up tomorrow, to be fair. If I was Ben Stokes, is what I'd be doing is the pick of their bowlers, 5 for 45. Cast didn't really show any danger or threat, and I actually think, he's probably been the worst of their pace bowlers through this series, and I'm surprised he's got as many starts as he had, and I wouldn't be surprised if he continues to bowl like that if he gets rotated out for the next test, but we'll wait and see what they do. Who knows with his English side. But I'll tell you what, looking forward to day 2. We might see plenty more wickets again, that is for certain. 20 wickets in a day, still phenomenal to think that Travis Head's batted twice today. It's been a weird old day, not necessarily what we expected coming into this test, but the English, they've crumbled again. The Aussies crumbled too, but the English just crumbled worse. It's, one's a softer biscuit than the other one, it seems. Certainly no batting clinics out there. Hats off to those, few players who did get some runs. Michael Neser, I didn't really mention him, high bat for Australia, into the 30s, did really well, and again shows why he's got an average in the high 20s in first-class cricket. And I think he might have passed 4,000 first-class runs. So, as I said, I think Australia should bat well into day 2. Need to put on at least 220, and then maybe if they it might not be horrible to have third to half a session tomorrow afternoon at England and see if they can pick up a couple of early wickets, get them on the back foot. But as I said, the heat on day 3 might just change things a little bit if the pitch settles, but you just never know with this pitch with the amount of grass on it. So it will be very interesting. But again, a big thank you to you for tuning in. We look forward to having Clem back tomorrow, a bit of a 2-person conversation rather than a monologue from me. But in the meantime, make sure to hit subscribe down below. You can obviously hit the bell button to get those notifications as well. And you can follow us on your favourite social media channels at The Chris Mack Show on Instagram, on TikTok, on X, and on Facebook. But until tomorrow, when we'll be back with plenty of content, we'll have some Big Bash content tomorrow. We'll have some NBL content. And again, the day's wrap at the end of play for day 2. Who knows, the test might be over. It might be a test wrap and recap by that point. But as always, a big thank you to you for tuning in. And we look forward to having you again on your home of the black and white of sport, no grey opinions, very, very soon.